Okay, welcome back to the second part of our planning meeting for the Recruitment and Retention subgroup for Vital Communities. And I'm trying to pull up, I was just sitting here looking through all the notes. Andrea, did you have something else you wanted to do besides the breakout groups? It seems like we need more time for breakout groups than we need for anything else, so we can build the work plan.
Yeah, I mean, unless folks have like, I know there's like Amelia is here, Lindsay's here. Elisa, I think, had to leave early last time. So I don't know how much folks need to kind of be brought up to speed. It's kind of difficult, I think, sometimes when we're sending things out over email and, we don't know how much time you've had to digest anything or any of that. And I know that some of this stuff is coming out kind of right before the next meeting is happening. So I just wanted to acknowledge, like, if there's anybody that has questions about where we're at, where the group's headed, why we made decisions we did, anything like that, just to make sure everybody's like on the same page before we break out. And I think the only other thing I thought of was, I don't know if you saw Lisa Bozogan's, I don't know if I'm saying her last name right, but her email this morning about just, she made a point about mentoring, that mentoring is such an important middle piece between the two R's of recruitment and retention. And I do think that's an important piece. I mean, obviously that's something we are all aware of. And so whether that rises to the level of making it an item on one of the work plans, or both of them in a different way, in different ways, we'll leave that up to the subgroups to decide, because obviously you have to prioritize what you're going to do in 90 days time. But just wanted to raise that up because she wasn't able to be here this morning, and it's a good point. And the only other thing that I noticed, and then I'll stop talking, is that on the retention work plan, I didn't see an item that was specific to Staff Appreciation Week. And I was thinking that was going to be like a specific action of that particular subgroup. So I don't know if I misunderstood or just didn't get on the sheet or whatever, but that was something that I just didn't want that to fall off, because I know that's an important and very very nice concrete thing to start with. So that was it.
I think I might be the only one here who was in that group that morning. So it was not one of our hottest topics of conversation. We had more conversations than actually getting to the work plan. So yeah, that's noted. And I think that the mentor piece should also be part of that group. So. But we also recognize that ECEA is doing a lot of good work, for the Staff Appreciation Week as well. So, in trying not to duplicate all efforts, supporting ECEA without trying to duplicate their efforts.
In the recruitment work group, when you brought that up about mentoring, we were going to do an inventory of workforce development support. So I wonder if we should include that practicum. I wonder what's going on right now with practicum work, pre-employment work. So maybe we should include practicum, mentoring, and OJT, and just see what's happening, like inventory that as well, so we know what's available. And we have Amelia to update us on the practicum piece anyway.
Well, is this an okay time for me to check in? I just want to say I was, in terms of process about knowing about this meeting and when it was, I don't think I ever got the information that the survey had happened. I completed the survey, but I never got this was the results of the survey. And I don't know if that was part of your process or not. But now I feel like I'm on board. I woke up this morning, opened my computer, like, oh, there's a meeting today. Okay, great. So I'm sorry about that, but I feel like I'm in rhythm with you now, which is really great. So I have a question, and there's an overarching statement that I think we all want to make sure that I just heard you say non-duplication, that there's a lot happening across the state of Vermont, I'm sure in New Hampshire as well, and just making sure that wherever we can, that we are supporting efforts and others can support us where they're able to. So I certainly don't know everything that's happening around. So that's what's also nice about working in a group, is that we come with different meetings that we're all going to, right? It's great. And then my question is, with my hat at Northern Lights, at CCV, but also teaching college courses, etc. And being in the professional development realm, where you would find my support to be the best. So if you want to give me a suggestion of which work group Amy or anyone else thinks, I'd be happy for that direction.
I just noticed, Andrea, that we have some people here that weren't on our lists for the subgroups, which means, yeah. So going back a little bit, for the first couple of meetings, we kind of just talked about what was already happening. We're looking at, we talked a lot about those issues that were floating around and then try to ground them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up looping back to two subgroups. And since the committee is called Recruitment and Retention, they all kind of fit in recruitment or retention. We did have a third concern or issue that rose, which was mental health and challenging behaviors. And we were trying to figure out where that would fit the best. And it seems to have landed in retention. So, and I don't know, did you get a chance to look at the work plan so far, Amelia?
I took a peek, yeah. Yeah.
So in recruitment, and this goes for Kim, Rachel, I don't know if you were here. Rebecca, seems like there are people who weren't here. So what we did was we talked about the difference between recruitment and retention. So recruitment would be, building the workforce prior to employment. Retention would be to support the current workforce, which may include the onboarding, mentoring piece as well. And they will definitely overlap here and there. So if you had a chance to look at the two work plans so far, you might have a better understanding of where you might want to spend your time. We'll be coming back together, so even if you wanted to cross back over and give input, that's needed. So if you think you want to take a look at can you put those in the chat so people can look at the work plans so far? Amelia, I was just thinking, because one of the top things that we were talking about was inventorying what's out there first. And so Sharon Harrington was here.
Yeah.
Today, and she talked a lot about Vermont programs, and we're like, we need to get this written down. We need to figure out what's available, what isn't, where the holes are, what we're not utilizing, that type of thing.
Yeah, I saw that she was there, so I don't know if she's going to continue to be a part of that subgroup. That's what I was thinking of, touching all the bases. It might be better if she's a part of that group, it might be good for me to be part of the other group. So I really don't know, whatever you think.
Right.
It's also a matter of who can attend when. I mean, right. So we're hopping on and off the bus as it's going forward. So,
welcome to our lives. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that one thing we could do today, is to just create a regular meeting time going forward? So it's not so much hopping on and off the bus?
We should probably do that now before people have to hop off, because different people need to leave early. Can we just take care of that now?
Because if I knew I was going to be the only one here from the retention group, I have an AC assessor here today. I might not have joined the group. So
might want to go take care of that. Oh, that's fun.
On his licensing coming yesterday, so
Oh,
I understand.
Let's look at we probably want to make a doodle poll at this point. What do you want to do, Andrew? I'm letting you take care of logistical pieces as far as meeting times.
Yeah, it seems best for you and I to figure out when we have overlap, use that as the basis for the doodle poll. And I think I've tried to do this in Doodle before, but I mean, I think it's best to have a regular meeting schedule. But I don't think that's clear in the Doodle poll because it's just by date. It's not like I can meet every second Tuesday or whatever it is. So I'll make it clear when I send the Doodle poll out that this will be the regular ongoing schedule based on what you say you can do for these March dates. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think, and how often did you think we would need to meet? I guess that's the other piece.
I mean, the other work groups are meeting twice a month. You know, each group is kind of self-defining how it's engaging with, you know, completing these tasks. So it's kind of up to this group to decide, you know, I mean, Amy, you as the facilitator, and whoever you can get to co-facilitate. I think that's a really powerful model too, is to have a co-facilitator. And I know it's been hard to find somebody who can, yeah, I know. But you know, if we want to keep doing it where we're doing actual work time during these meetings, and then we come back together as a large work group to make sure we're like the threads are all coming together and we're clear with each other, we can do it that way. If there are, and there may be then, I mean, as we move forward, there may be specific topics we want to cover as a larger work group. And then work time on the work plans and the subgroups will take place more outside of the meetings. I mean, it kind of depends on what's happening with the work. So
I kind of like the hour and 15 minutes, 15 minutes of updating, 45 minutes of work time, and then close. You know, 10 minutes to close or remate. And then if we need to change it later, we can. But I think to get things going now, we need to, there's a lot of money, there's ARPA money sitting there. We need to get positioned to get in front of people. So I would suggest twice a month for the hour and 15 minutes and use it as 45 minutes of that time for work time.
mm-hmm.
Anyone else? And we'll work on trying to find the best time. Andrea, it may be that we need to buy another line. Another Zoom line. So we don't
there is another line.
Okay, just so that we're not
Yeah.
around somebody's Zoom time. If the time works for this group, we
Oh,
want to
totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's a share. They're both shared lines with the rest of Vital Communities, and they may have put their other meeting in right before ours. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that happens, let us know because we have a couple of lines too. All right. So we wanted to, oh, Michael just popped back on. Wanted to make sure that just really quickly, we're going to do a doodle poll. We're going to meet twice a month, an hour and 15 minutes, first 15 minutes kind of connecting, 45 minutes of work. We'll use this as a work time, and then 10 or 15 minutes to close, just to get started. So we'll use this time as work time so we can move on, getting the work plans completed, getting budgets, getting contacts, getting assignments, things like that. Anything else before we, so now it's Michael and Sunny in the recruitment and retention. No, were you two in retention, the retention work group?
Michael was in recruitment.
I was in recruitment, yeah.
Still Sunny alone.
That's okay. If the recruitment group wants to work today, like I said, I'm happy to hop off today so I can give attention to our NACER assessor who is here today.
Is there anyone who wasn't here before? There's quite a few people that is interested in the retention work group more than the recruitment. So if you maybe thumbs up, raise your hand. It's Rachel.
Like I said, I'm easy to go anywhere you want me to. I want to respect Sunny's need to attend the program right now, but if she needs someone to talk to, I always want to talk to Sunny.
And I have no preference either group, so I'm flexible wherever I'm needed.
Rachel.
I lean more towards the recruitment side of it.
And then Kim. Rebecca. You could put it in the chat, Kim or Rebecca, where you lean toward. Elise as well.
Please, if folks wouldn't mind putting it in the chat, that would really help me. So I can get the breakout room set up properly.
Need a group. Okay, I suggest we cut Sunny loose and let her take care of her NAUIC validator. And we can just meet and review. We can actually, if we have enough time, we can meet and review both work plans and do input on both.
And once we have a regular schedule, I think that'll be helpful in connecting with the people who were in the retention group. You know, as Andrea said before, the work isn't all going to happen during these meetings. That some has to work in between. Some work has to be done in between too. So we didn't establish any clear leadership in that group. So, you know, maybe that's something that needs to happen so we can move things forward. So I can reach out to people and see who wants to take on that role of leadership in that group. Okay, so I am going to say goodbye now and go see how our process is going.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so this will be, we'll start with the recruitment. Okay, we'll start with recruitment, and why don't we just start with the recruitment work plan. I don't have, am I able, do you want to share it?
Yeah, I can put it up if you want to, I'll look at it.
It's just easier. This is actually almost an entirely new group, which is good. Take a fresh look at what's already been done. It's a Google Doc, so we should be able to input things live. So we started with really just landing on getting something in writing, getting an inventory in writing about workforce development supports. And then I would suggest adding to that inventorying specifically OJT, practicum, and mentoring programs. And we should actually put apprenticeship in there as well. Do you want me to put it in, or are you going to do it? So to include OJT, practicum, and mentoring. So this is where, Amelia, maybe we go back and forth, you know, to make sure that we had Northern Lights covered, make sure we have New Hampshire covered, and Sharon look at it as well. Okay. Anything else for that first action step we took a look at?
Can you just quickly define OJT?
So anything, opportunities in New Hampshire for on-the-job training.
Oh, on-the-job training.
Yeah,
Got it.
any kind of on-the-job training, especially, and I don't want to limit it to Department of Labor. There could be other on-the-job training models out there that we need to look at. So any kind of on-the-job training.
Yeah, like there's a new movement now within Vermont that the Vermont Adult Learning group has started to offer fundamentals and work on this recruitment and workforce issue. That's been a new addition.
When do you want to have this inventory completed by?
Give us maybe 3 weeks. Could we do it in 3 weeks?
You want to think about in terms of how many meetings we need to complete that? Or
Yeah, I don't know that I feel like this may be something that we just get to the document when we can and put in what we can. Like make a holding document for inventory, kind of dump everything onto that document and then organize it. Maybe a couple of people meet to organize the document. That's what I was thinking. Rather than
Can I
take
just,
5 minutes to try to sit there and think of everything.
totally. Do you want me to just, I'll just add a sheet right here in the spreadsheet.
So is this something that we will need to cobble together, or are there people in positions either in Vermont or New Hampshire that kind of know this stuff, right? And kind of have a understanding of what the options are? And I mean, could they just do it quickly?
Amelia, it would probably be Amelia, Sharon for the Vermont side.
Okay,
And I will identify some people in New Hampshire.
great.
And then, you know, anybody else that's in, you know, workforce development, we've had some people in the group from workforce development. If they're aware, it doesn't have to be an ECE OJT program. It can be an offering from the Department of Labor that gets dumped in there too. And into that holding tank, and then we can organize it. I mean, AmeriCorps, I don't know what is out there, so could be a bunch of different things. But we could start with Sharon, Amelia.
Is there any, I don't know where the NACI, National Professionalism, I'm forgetting the name, it's transforming the profession, but it's
Work to the profession.
power to the profession, right?
Yeah, Sharon covered that.
Okay,
I think she's on the board.
yeah, she's probably,
So she had spoken about some of that, but it was just, rather than just talking about it, people trying to remember, we can create some sort of an inventory menu.
So what I will do is before, so when we're finished with this meeting today, I will set up the inventory tab in some way that makes some sense so that it's easy to plug information in. I can look through the notes that Sharon has put in here already to populate what I can. And then I'll save this version and send it back out to all the folks that are working on this recruitment subgroup. Does that make sense?
And I think Allison, I was just thinking Allison for the New Hampshire group, and then she can tap Carrie Belknap Morris for New Hampshire Technical or New Hampshire Community College.
so do you want Sharon and me to meet us on an aside and just make sure with our two heads together, we've got as complete a list as we can think of? Would that be a helpful thing? It sounds like we already populated something. I'm not sure where I see where that was, but
So
Added a page.
yeah, so Sharon took notes like about the discussion as well as filled out the action steps.
I see. Yeah, I'm seeing like that adult learning thing is called Step Up to Childcare. I don't know if she added that as part of it.
That inventory would be where you would put all those particular programs, and then maybe we would decide on parameters like when do they run, how much do they cost, who are they available to. One of the things that I know when I'm talking to providers and they're saying what's out there, because we're in a bi-state region, do they have to be a Vermont resident working in a Vermont center, or do they have to be can they be a New Hampshire resident working in a Vermont center? It would be super helpful and useful to have that parameter kind of carved out in a column, what qualifications or requirements are as far as residency.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm still getting up to speed with norms for what's happening right now. So those are all, that's a big task, right? That takes time to do that task. So are you wanting the work group to meet and parse out those tasks and decide who's going to do what and what the deadline is? Or where are we in accomplishing things like that?
Well, I know the schedules are pretty crazy. It would work best if people could go in when they have time within
Okay,
for the deadline or before the next meeting and put in what they can.
okay.
We meet again, we can kind of figure out what's missing, if there's anything missing or if there's a sector missing.
And I'm not sure if, oh, you sent this document, so it's a shared Excel that we can go in.
I don't see it.
Yes. It's a Google sheet.
Oh, this is a Google Doc. Okay. Oh, yeah.
And
I see that
everybody,
kind
anybody with a link can get here.
Okay, I feel like I'm, once again, got new information and I know what's happening. Thank you for your help. Thanks for your
So,
patience.
I don't know if that, no, I'm sorry, Amelia. I don't know if this helps, but basically I'm here with right now 20 hours a week to try to support this project as the coordinator. And Amy is the facilitator of this particular work group, right? One of 3 in the whole initiative. And so I'm trying to provide as much administrative support as I can for you all to shape this. So does that make sense? And we're trying to figure out ways to share the information, but also keep it, you make sure everybody's kept up to speed on where the progress is going. So right now I'm trying to be the clearinghouse for like what version of the plan is going out, right? So I'll take on the task of setting up the inventory sheet so that it's easy to fill out. So you and Sharon and Allison and Carrie don't have to do that part. You can, and also if I do it and you're missing a column or a row, add it, right? Just
Yeah.
make sure that I know. So does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
It would help me too if we had a column is it possible to add a column to the work plan where we have assignments? So that I can keep track of what I'm supposed to be doing and what other people know.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Write it down, but if it's where it gets in the notes and you have to read the notes, but if it's on this work plan, then we'll know, oh, I don't need to look that up. So-and-so is going to do that.
Totally. Yeah.
Lindsay, Rachel, Kristen, Rebecca, Elise, you are new to the group. Any input on this piece for this action step or anything else? This is just unmute.
I don't, Amy, I'm admittedly just coming up to speed and just kind of laying the land here. So I apologize for not being able to contribute any input moving forward at the moment.
This is Rebecca. I would echo the same sentiment.
And this is Kristen, and I'm brand new to my job in workforce development, so I'm happy to contribute where I can, but really am kind of learning what this is all about.
Kristen, when we get to potential research, innovative staffing solutions, that would be, I don't know if that's something where all of you can, maybe if you're in marketing or whatever, to feel free to add to the action step or to adjust the action step according to your experience, especially in today's world. If you're having that experience and having success, we want to make sure we capture that.
Sure, absolutely.
So why don't we go ahead to the second action step, which is investigate workforce development bills, Vermont, Hampshire, and ECE. Is ECE included? So we had discussed that there are a lot of workforce development bills in both states, and we wanted to, I guess we're looking at another type of an inventory of workforce bills to kind of capture what's in it. What does it mean? What is it covering? So we're not spending a lot of time on something. Maybe we can track it. In New Hampshire, for example, actually in New Hampshire and Vermont, there's a recruitment and retention workforce bill that includes bonuses. So hiring bonuses and retention bonuses. So being able to name those and track those. Kim is here. Nope, Kim is here. Kim can kind of help us with that as well, probably from New Futures, if she knows of any workforce bills. And then tracking what's happening with those bills.
That's really the work of Let's Grow Kids in Vermont. So I think that's where your resource is for finding that information. They're advocates in the State House.
And Matt Levin.
Right, and he's with Let's Grow Kids.
This is Rebecca. I have a question related to that action step. I'm not sure, I don't think it fits in with this, but it brings to mind if there's a spot already in the action steps listed or a new spot that could be developed for looking at what innovative practices employers might be applying. Is that under research innovative staffing solutions, or like our city just adopted an FSA support incentive for childcare?
Thanks, Rebecca. We'll definitely add that. And we may have to break that out into solutions for parents and, keeping it affordable, and then solutions for
Yeah.
We'll see what comes of that. Michael,
Yes.
is there something you want in that area? Or I didn't know if there was something you wanted to.
Well, I guess my reaction was the same as you, that's, I guess, less about the early education and care workforce and more about supports for parents. But certainly it's an innovative hiring solution and staffing retention solution for businesses, clearly.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think the other thing too about the legislative piece and sort of tracking some of these workforce bills is, and this is just an observation, that most of the bills that I'm aware of in New Hampshire, so childcare is defined not just as early education and care, but it also includes school age care, right? So I'm having a really hard time understanding how they might disaggregate information and how reported back to us and sort of like, well, what is the money that's actually going to go to early education and what's going to go to school age care, because the needs of those workforces are so vastly different. And the models in which those programs operate are so vastly different. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around the definition of childcare in New Hampshire and how that supports or does not support the field. Maybe that's a bigger question, but that's.
The last bills, it was, you had to be licensed because after school programs or school age programs were licensed under childcare licensing. But then when Gopher money was being released, which is happening again, they turn around and included summer camps, which are under recreation, and they don't have the same regulations that we have. So it used to be easy and clear, and now we'll have to look. That may be something we need to look at in each bill to find out.
And in Vermont, it's following who the regulatory agency is. So Agency of Education is doing one set, and the Vermont Agency of Human Services is early education, meaning age 8 and younger.
Right.
That licensing happens through the Agency of Education for public school teachers.
Okay, Amelia, can say that again. Do public school preschools have to be licensed through the same group as?
No, the regular, I'm sorry, I just jumped on your question.
No, you knew what I was gonna ask.
I did. I'm sorry, I do that. I'm bad at jumping onto people's words. The Agency of Human Services is the regulatory agency for licensed childcare programs. We're talking about programs. When we're talking about licensed teachers, such as a first grade teacher, a second grade teacher, a kindergarten teacher with an early education endorsement, that's the Agency of Education. But your licensing regulations, the licensure comes and checks out your program, that person works under the Agency of Human Services.
Thank you. Okay, back to the work plan. Whoops, I'm in the wrong one. Anything else about workforce development bills before we go to marketing plan?
Just making note in that legislation inventory that there need to be columns for all of those different regulatory bodies, because that might help.
Okay, on to marketing plan for general public. Again, this is for recruiting early childhood staff for early care and education centers and programs. Develop marketing plan for general public, gather and share on social media, national ECE workforce recruitment articles. We had talked about, I think in our main group actually, when we were doing any kind of PR, when the ECEA was doing any kind of activities or for visibility, whether it's our staff appreciation during Week of the Young Child, or teacher appreciation, or if it were during our wellness or any type of forward-facing information, that we include a couple of links, maybe to power articles that people can click on. We were talking about doing an op-ed, and that would include those kind of click information links where people can go to two articles. One would be really highlighting the importance and significance of early childhood education and high quality programs. And then the other would be, I believe we had talked about staffing. So looking at staffing and bringing people into the field. Let's see. Oh, New Futures with an op-ed. Yahoo. Okay. So a marketing plan for the general public, gather and share on social media, national ECE workforce recruitment articles. So specifically, I remember the two articles, finding and choosing those. And then as far as the marketing plan, I'm not entirely sure what that would entail and what we discussed. Michael, do you remember?
No.
So one other thing I'm going to do to this document before I release it back out into the wild here is put in some, I'm going to organize it so that there's places for sub-steps for these goals that you have, because I see that this says action step, but these are goals, right? It's at a different level of organization and action. So I want to make it easy for everybody who's accessing this document to plug in all of those sub-steps. Because if this is your goal, then the success indicator is going to be you have the plan ready, right? But there's nowhere to document how you got from here to here. I'm also looking up here at this success indicator, and I don't see how there's nowhere to get from investigating to having the workforce included in proposed legislation. So I'm noticing some things about the document that might make it hard for us to keep track of the work. And I'm taking responsibility for, I'll try to get it at least set up so that we can do that. So
that could be true of the first inventory as well. That may be the first step. And then we choose a couple of those pieces from the inventory to pursue or implement.
Exactly, right. Right. And these are all, that's why these are good beginning steps, is to investigate, inventory, develop.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you're talking about an action step of developing an inventory, the success indicator, I assume would be completing the inventory, right? So if we have that inventory, then we're successful in creating it and we can check it off, right? So maybe that's a more direct line to actual
Yes.
achievement of a goal. I think there's another question, and not to complicate things too much too early, but a lot of these programs have been around for a long time, right? And presumably have been serving early educators or people who want to move into the field for a long time. What do we know about why they are not successful in moving people into the field? Why aren't people, moving into those community college programs or those other kinds of programs? And like, we need to kind of understand that dynamic and a little bit, otherwise we can just churn through a lot of programs that have been existing for a long, long time that it's really kind of hard to crack the nut of moving people through and then actually into employment. So understanding that dynamic a little bit better would be helpful, I think.
And I think that would be important. When you said that, I was thinking today from our experience in recruiting and trying to retain staff, OJT programs, apprenticeship programs, practicum programs, mentoring programs, they've been around for a long time. And under today's conditions, which one would be most likely the best vehicle, not for everybody, but to try to support? Yeah.
And we may not have the data to really understand those dynamics, but there's certainly a lot of national research out there on workforce development efforts and, what seems to be successful and what does not.
Kristen and Carrie, you were here the last time. What do you remember about our recruitment discussion that we're not looking at?
I have to sign off at 10, so I just wanted to kind of chime in a little bit on the marketing piece. And first of all, I feel like there's a lot on this list and we didn't have a lot of time to kind of flesh everything out. So I think we will need more discussion around some of these items, particularly marketing, because I think we really need to understand what the message is. And is it just going, it can't just be go into early childhood. People know what wages are, they know what the challenges are. So it may be taking that inventory and turning that into training messaging. And, here's how to train, here's some great ways to get that education, and why is the career rewarding. But I think we need to talk some more about it, because I am in no way an expert in that kind of field. I'm happy to help kind of put that together in terms of who's the audience and what's the best way to reach that audience. Who are we kind of looking at to recruit? But I think that there needs to be some more discussion and perhaps that inventory completed, so we understand, are we directing people to places, or how are we doing this? And I apologize for my camera. My internet has just been ridiculously spotty this week out in central Vermont.
Mine too. Very this week. Thinking of that, Kristen, I'm thinking of the experience that other sectors are having is important, as well as knowing the field. And I always go back to, if we could grab that company that saved Tylenol, you know, that company that marketed Tylenol out of that terrible issue it had years back where it was tainted. Nobody even remembers it. So there's this strong messaging piece, like the how of marketing. It's not, you know, we're a workforce, but people go into professions that aren't high paying and but it's rewarding. You know, I think of like Greenpeace or something like that. What is the message? Like what kind of message or who, or there seems to be that piece that we haven't spent enough time looking at, like a really strong message. So any help with that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think I kind of, and again, being new to it, I asked a lot of questions at the last meeting, just in terms of, you know, and I learned, you know, it's not childcare is not the terminology, it's early childhood education, which I knew, but seeing this as a profession of teachers, you know, the contribution you make early on and the importance of it. But it certainly there has to be some message to draw people in the field, I guess, longer term, you know, what's a career path, you know, things like that. And who are you drawing in? And I know kind of, and like I said, I've been on the job over here. I've been with DH for 15 years, but on the job in workforce development this is week 4. So I'm learning a lot, but you know, is it career changers? Is it high school kids that we're targeting to go into the workforce? Is it people who want a late career job change? Is it all of them? And how do you reach them? You know, so I think us kind of understanding who those potential audiences are to kind of draw them into the field. And are there creative ways that they can join it? I know, like I quickly mentioned, and I think it may have existed, but like we used to have a float pool at DH, but a pool of subs. And it sounds like you've got the apprenticeship piece, and I just don't know enough about it to kind of discuss it here. But what does that mean? You know, what does that mean for kids? Are there any ways where they can get their tuition paid for at a community college? Is there a way that they can train as a high school senior? I know in Vermont, there's lots of opportunity for early college. You know, what programs are out there and what should they be thinking about? Because that kind of is changing how people look at, you know, do you just go pay for that 4-year education? And that's not attainable for everyone, but there are certainly programs out there to make that more attainable for people. And if their dream is to work with young kids, which I think that really does appeal to a lot of people, and to make a difference, how do you get into that without being over your head? Those are just my quick thoughts, and like no answers to anything, but.
Absolutely, thank you. Because it ranges from, you know, we've talked about what we can do, because there's the high school, you know, there's this whole effort that needs to go into the high school piece. And then there are people who are looking into the field, irregardless of where they are, how can we support them? Because they can't necessarily be employed because they're not qualified. So we don't want to lose them. We're also finding that people aren't committing to long-term education commitments coming into the field, even with it being paid for. That hasn't appealed for a while. And then another one we were thinking of is how can we connect with like recreation departments or summer programs to expose that middle school age where kids start thinking about careers and talking about careers. They do it with fire departments, they do it with nursing, they do it with other sectors. Is there a way to pilot something where we bring kids at that age where they're starting to talk about careers into early education and expose them to that as well? So there's a lot, like you said, Kristen, you don't want to get bogged down in like 900 different directions, but maybe, like you said, maybe an inventory again of gathering information about what what kinds of pathways are there, and then which ones do we want to look at?
And it could even be an information session, right? Like where you have this information pulled together and you kind of put out that's something that we do at Workforce Readiness Institute, is have information sessions on what the programs are and what's out there, what the job field looks like. And that certainly, there's no cost associated with that. It's just somebody's time and energy to kind of chat with kids. And we're looking at, or I'm looking at, where in the cycle are we putting these opportunities out there? You know, do you want, and timing is kind of everything with that high school crowd, right? Like my son's a junior and is being inundated with stuff. And that's when the kids start to think about what's the next step. It's not kind of as they're graduating, what are we going to do? It's like you said, it's ahead of that. It's even maybe middle school. So.
Just made me think of something and I forgot it.
I think, so just in terms of process and all of this, just hearing what everybody's talking about, it sounds like to me what might be helpful is in the workforce program inventory, like you have to start with what's already existing, right? Like we've said several times, like we need to start with that. As you're looking at those things, I hear all kinds of really great ideas about we could do this and we could do this and what about this and we tried this and it didn't work and whatever. And maybe putting in a column for, you know, this makes me think of or what ifs, so that there's a place to dump that stuff.
Yep.
But we do have to start, I mean, we have to start with that inventory and then we can decide, like Kristen said, like what to do with it. Do we, you know, that's another part of this initiative is then, you know, looking at possibly having another event in April that we're planning to have to reconvene everybody who was involved in the symposia. So.
Okay. So have we done, what ones are we missing? So we're at op-eds regarding ECE recruitment to build public will for investment. Is that a piece of the marketing plan that's doable? Thanks, Kristen.
That sounds like an idea that could go into the marketing plan, but you may not want to make it, you know, you may want to keep it as an idea for right now.
I think we want to hold it aside because I think it's something we can move along, right? Okay.
I'll nest it. That's the word I'm looking for.
So we had talked in the main group op-ed, David was going to start with something. Right, Michael? Help me.
Right.
David was going to start with something. I'm going to share with, he was going to share with, was it Kara? Was it you, Kara?
Yeah, I offered to maybe help and happy to let David take the lead, but yes.
Share around. Michael offered to give some input, and Kim Ip just said that New Futures may have some, be able to maybe, I'm not sure, Kim, if you're offering to publish something on your own for the Upper Valley, or if you have something prepackaged.
I mean, the initial idea, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, Amy. So I'm kind of in a strange transition right now. I know Janet is coming on to take over the Upper Valley. I've just been hanging out for consistency reasons. I would have to check in with Janet if she'd be willing to take on some of this work here in the Upper Valley as I formally transition the role with her. But I do know that some of the supports that New Futures can do and allowing this is kind of skimming over any materials that you would like for submission for op-ed or LTEs, providing feedback, providing those direct sources on where to send LTEs. I think coming from a policy standpoint, that whatever you're submitting to the Upper Valley or the Valley News should most definitely be included in the Concord Monitor, for example. Those are what legislators are most often reading. So we can help with supports like that. I would have to check, but we have a comms person on our team that kind of oversees drafts of LTEs and op-eds and does a really great job of providing feedback to make sure that they're kind of up to speed and what will gain traction to be published. So perhaps that's something that New Futures can help with, but kind of need to still check in with Janet to see if there's still an interest there. But just some potential ideas of how New Futures can support at this time in this current project.
Thank you, Kim. Maybe we should put Kim/Janet so we keep so we remember that over. Michael?
Yes. I was just going to say that I think the original conversation around Dave drafting an op-ed was for Teacher Appreciation Week, right? So whether that'll get into the sort of mechanics of recruitment or public investment, I mean, maybe it will. It'll be interesting, but maybe it's just more of an appreciative expression of gratitude, right? So.
All right, we're running out of time, so let's go to research innovative staffing solutions.
I'm wondering if given all of this and the fact that we're just starting out here and getting our workflow set up and who's doing what, I'm wondering if you want to kind of offload this to the programs and facilities work group, because that is something they're looking at. In particular, they have a work plan around, sharing resources and subpools as part of that.
I don't know if it was specifically subpools, though. I don't know if that's what it meant. I guess that must be what they were. If they put subpools, I wasn't here for that one, so it must be they were thinking innovative staffing, something short term rather than something long term. Because what I'm thinking for recruitment is a long term effort. So if I were going to research an innovative staffing solution, it would be a long-term staffing, full-time staffing solution. So, and that probably will go up to, that's going to, that's the same thing as some of our earlier, which is workforce development support. So we probably have that covered. So we might want to clarify with the group next time to make sure that's what they meant.
Yeah.
To the group, yep. Short term, it seems, keep trying to scroll up on your document, it's not working. Short term, it means we can start the inventory of the workforce development. And the workforce development legislation. Marketing plan, I feel like we need more time to flush that out. And the op-ed is sort of, this op-ed for appreciation is starting to roll. That's where I am. Seems like enough because those two inventories are pretty big. And
yeah, and I want to take the point that I forget who made it, but that maybe we need to wait on the end dates until we have our meeting schedule set so that they're realistic dates.
So wait on the, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Maybe we need to wait on setting the end dates until we have our meeting schedule set up so that we have realistic end dates.
But we can get started on those two things. And then we'll get a meeting schedule and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Is it okay if I stop my share?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I think we have at least the recruitment piece fleshed out a little bit. Is there anything else kind of hanging that we didn't, that isn't in the action steps, isn't in the plan, that we haven't discussed?
Is there any value in doing anything to look at sort of current regulations to educator credentials, or what those look like, or how states think about those, or I don't know. I mean, I'm just sort of posing the question, but we kind of need to understand those a little bit better.
I have a cheat sheet document of New Hampshire's regulations and the minimum qualifications for staffing positions, and then also for Vermont. So that might be a good place to start looking at. And then there's, you know, the COVID piece of the staffing crisis piece. For each state I can put in, I got to remind myself to put this in, but New Hampshire just passed legislation to change the minimum teacher qualifications. Vermont was on that pathway and then decided to do expedited variances, staffing credentials and ratios. So with that, it's sort of a caveat to each of the lists. Can start with that. I think that's pretty much done, so that people can see what are the minimum qualifications. And then the other thing that's going on with the one group, and I don't know if we thought about it in the steering committee, is we're preparing to do another survey to really kind of get a more up-to-date understanding of exactly what qualified staff we need. Are we talking about 30 qualified, you know, lead teachers? Are we talking about 80? Are we talking about 250? What exactly are we needing for staff? So we're preparing to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be helpful. And any data, I mean, the data needs, I think, are an interesting question, right? And I think this is a place where certainly philanthropy can lean in, because if we have a clear understanding of what data we don't have and can design some research to get that data, like, let's do it. You know, I don't know who can do that kind of research, but you know, there are funders out there willing to support these projects that could then help inform this work in a different way, right? So I think we should put those kinds of things on the table as well.
I think it's great to start with these inventories, and I'm trying to take minutes and also hold the information on the spreadsheet, and you know, I can't take notes while everybody's looking at my screen to see the spreadsheet, so I'm sorry. But you know, I'll add a column too to each of those inventories about data, because I think too, like, just capturing all of this, like, you know, even like one column with data needed, and then another column with like data available, you know, if people can like throw in links to things, you know, and then but then we'll need to sort it. And I also I want to just voice that I want this group to have concrete steps and concrete actions and dates and things, so that the progress is really palpable. And there's so many ideas and so many thoughts. So I just want to be supportive in saying, like, okay, like, that's too big, or that's too much, or that's too many, or that, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important to, in the survey, I wrote a note, we had already talked about it, but really identifying what we have for empty slots and where those slots are, because my feeling, just from talking to directors, is that most of our empty classrooms are infant toddler classrooms. And that maybe we're, again, bring us back to that infant toddler piece, where we may want, if we're going to focus on, you know, staff development, if we're going to do some effort, it may be developing infant toddler teachers in certain areas, so that we can get those classrooms back open. That would be, we don't want to create people that can't get a job. There's a lot of preschool there's a lot of preschools out there and they're full of preschool teachers, but we're definitely lacking in toddler teachers.
Right. If that's not where the need is, that shouldn't be the focus.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Agree.
but I want to make sure that that's where we are. So I'll include that in the survey. Okay.
Okay.
There's nothing else. I think we can let people go.
Okay.
Andrew, do you want me to stay on and help with the notes? Are you all set?
No, I'll do a dump after the meeting that I have to jump on right after this.
Okay, Doodle Poll coming your way and we'll see you soon. And
All right.
Google's Doc coming as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.